Would you say that that intuition that you spoke about, sort of the serendipity of circumstances, um, is something that is kind of acquired through experience, and that you can also trace back to prior experiences where all these moments where certain exhibitions that you curated, there was key elements that elevated it to a level that you couldn't have foreseen?
Yeah, I think that's the rewarding thing that sometimes happens in curating. Sometimes you don't. I think it's maybe also with artists' works, or the research that artists are engaged in. I don't think you know always where you're going, and that's the good thing about contemporary art. But there's something that seems urgent or that seems necessary, that has something to do with the time that we're in, or the moment, or the kinds of changes that are happening, and that we listen to, or that we are watching, all of us somehow from different angles and different perspectives. And sometimes it's amazing when it happens. It doesn't happen always for exhibitions, obviously, but that there are a number of people who are thinking this and don't know of each other's work in that regard. And as you start to probe it, things fall into place, and then you realize, and that is because this there is a moment where this is becoming poignant, or rising to the surface because of what is happening all around us. That could be political. It could be perceptual. It could be cognitive. It could have something to do with technological changes. A few years ago, when, for instance, we were looking into the relationship between art and music, which had sort of was bubbling up everywhere it seemed, through the burgeoning DJ culture and the reproducibility of digital soundtracks and downloading and so on, and how that was becoming a pervasive medium for kids and so on, but also at an industrial and at the level of the culture industry at large. Artists had already started to sort of look into this phenomenon and started to think through what is the cultural geography of music. How does that shape our lives in a way, and what is it? What does this? What does culture mean in the sphere of the reproducibility of the audio and voice and star culture and so on? And a lot of people were doing things with karaoke, exploring that as a medium in itself. And so it was, even though sometimes the artists didn't know of each other, it was strange how many people were working on this front and looking at it and examining it closely. And I think I would say that, in the past few years, there has been a real keen interest to look at modernity again. Postmodernism, we know, was a kind of reaction, was an attempt to break with a certain regime of modernity, of modernism specifically, and often people say, or in many instances, it was kind of with Greenbergian modernism at an aesthetic level. But I think we see that as just a particular moment, and there's a lot of thinking again about what is the legacy of modernity with regard to democracy, with regard to the political field, with regard to what is happening at a global level. How is the Enlightenment really still shaping us, or how not? Bruno Latour's provocative question about that we were in fact never modern yet, and that there are certain challenges inside of the questions of the modern that have come sort of back and sort of gut-wrenchingly close as we're attempting to deal with certain tendencies and so on. There's a kind of a questioning of this, and we don't necessarily know where we're going with all of this, but or where some of these questions might lead us. But it seems acute, and Mark's work works in that field as well. So, and not every exhibition will have that sort of sense of, that it relates itself acutely. But I think that curatorial work, that's sort of the challenge of it in some ways, to be able to be part of the process of manifesting these inquiries, making them visible, putting it forward, letting it be seen, making sure it is seen, hope that there is a furthering of the question or furthering of inquiry that can follow up as a result of that. So I think, it's and I think as a curator, hopefully you're sort of part of what is happening in contemporary art, what artists are thinking about, or what the perception of the present tense, the moment in which we live is, that is an attempt to deal with what the present is and to understand it somehow and to show something about it, and to be part of that is really exciting.